Welcome to Inclusive Gathering Birmingham. My name's Danielle and my pronouns are she, her. So last week we had our first ever in-person gathering that we also live streamed. So huge thanks to everybody that helped out with that, especially to Tom and Josh and Lou who were doing the tech stuff on site. So we're always learning, and we're going to work out how we even improve what we did, and we'd love to hear your feedback if there's things, especially if you're watching from home, that would make you feel more connected and included. So we're going to be doing that in person and live stream gathering on the first Sunday of every month for now. Next month we're going to be back at the church at Cars Lane doing that, and then in August, on the 1st of August, we're going to be doing a special outdoor worship gathering near the city center in Birmingham. It's going to be a bit longer, so for some of you that might want to travel in from a bit further away, this might be a good time, because lots of hangout time and space, and pretty casual environment to get to know people if you're comfortable to do that. We don't want anybody to feel like they need to do something that's beyond what their comfort level is at this point. We're going to continue to meet weekly online like this, and today we're talking about neurodiversity in the church. And again, this is part of our series on including one another, loving one another, and how we do that with a variety of differences and different ways of approaching the world. And so we're looking forward to David sharing with us a little bit about that later, and hearing from some folks from his group that are going to be sharing different elements of the service today. So whether you're gay or straight, whatever your gender identity or your race or ethnicity, your neurodiversity, your neurotypicalness, whatever you believe about God, it's absolutely okay to bring who you are right now to this space And we believe that, you know, part of what makes us us is what you bring here with you, whether that's in the online space or when we're able to then gather in person. So I'm going to hand over now for some music, but I'll see you again in a bit.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Yes, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, all is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me. His gracious mercy. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Realized he has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the Son sets free, always free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
name is Pamela Hirsch, and I am part of David and Net's community group. I have Asperger's syndrome. As part of our regular worship gathering, we have what we call our question for sharing, to give people a moment to connect with each other. So we're going to ask you all a question, and as we share our answer, you can also share your answers in the comments on Facebook Live or YouTube. Is there a place or a food or a smell that makes you feel at home, relaxed, or at ease? The place that makes me feel at home, relaxed, and at ease is level 2, the knowledge floor of the main library of Birmingham. The knowledge floor is my favorite place in the library because it is home to the books on my favorite subjects, science and religion. Science helps me to understand the world and how it works, and religion inspires me how to live in the world in a positive and harmless way. I like to walk up and down the shelves of books reading out loud, and the vision of being surrounded by the students from all the various beautiful spiritual paths we have in Birmingham fills me with joy and calls from my heart the wish, may all beings be happy and safe.
Well, hello, friends. I'm going to say a prayer now, as requested by David. I am a Quaker, and I attend Nets and David's Bible study on a Tuesday evening. And I am actually waiting to be assessed for Asperger's syndrome and or autism. So yeah, it gives me pleasure to be able to read this prayer, and it's wonderful to participate in the activities of this church group, which often affirm me, and it's also a group that gives me a lot of self-confidence in a way that many other religious organisations just haven't, because of perhaps a lack of understanding about things like autism. But one thing I would say in closing, friends, is that the idea that people with autism, lack compassion is often just totally not true, in the sense that some of my most compassionate friends and confidants are people who are on the spectrum. So let's take a moment of stillness, maybe breathe, and just center ourselves to pray to God with sincerity and truth of heart today. If you are someone who prays, you might want to pray these words with me. Otherwise, you can just let these words wash over you. So here goes. You, the one from whom on different paths all of us have come, to whom on different paths all of us are going. Make strong in our hearts what unites us. Build bridges across all that divides us. United make us rejoice in our diversity, and at one in our witness to your peace, a rainbow to your glory.
Hello, I'm Net, and I'm part of the Summerfield community group here at Inclusive Gathering Birmingham. Our reading today is from 1 Corinthians 12, verses 12 and 21 to 27. Just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all the parts form one body, so it is with Christ. The eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you, and the head cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem weaker are indispensable, and those parts that we think are less honourable we treat with special honour, and the parts that are unpresentable are treated with special modesty, while our presentable parts need no special treatment. But God has put the body together, giving greater honour to the parts that lacked it, so there should be no division in the body, but that its parts should have equal concern for each other. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honoured, every part rejoices with it. Now you are the body of Christ, and each one of you is a part of it.
Hello, I'm David. I'm part of the community here at Inclusive Gathering. The passage we read earlier, Paul's illustration of the church being like the body, like Jesus' body on earth, and each of us having a different part to play, like limbs and organs and so on within a body, is a wonderful image. And that image is one of unity in diversity. And I think it's a wonderful image that for our community, because we are such a diverse community. And what I want to look at today is something called neurodiversity. It's a term that's appeared in the last, say, 20 years as we've realised each person's brain works slightly differently. You may have come across personality tests, for example, and that shows you something about how your brain works. You may have worked out that you're an introvert, or that you are very open-minded, or conscientious, or rational, or maybe a bit neurotic when you've done some of these. I've done all those tests, and all of those are me. But several years ago, I received a very late diagnosis of a condition called Asperger's syndrome, which is on the autistic spectrum. And receiving something like that can be quite shocking and depressing, because often these things are termed in ways that seem to be very negative about what is lacking and what someone can't do and where someone's weakness is. But actually, as I began to look at these symptoms and look at the characteristics related to autism, I also began to see some great strengths, and these strengths and weaknesses gave great insight into my life of why I'd found some things difficult and some things easy. So for example, I might find social skills a challenge, but I can concentrate on detailed tasks for a long period of time. And there are other conditions and other diagnoses that people receive that are quite similar. One is ADHD, which is to do with, initially you think of it in terms of the weakness and saying, oh, it means someone can't concentrate, it means someone can't sit still. But actually, there can also be great strengths associated with that someone might have great creative energies, because they're jumping from one thought to another enables them to see links that other people wouldn't see. Dyslexia we think of as a reading problem. Someone can't see the patterns in the letters and finds those a challenge. But actually, dyslexic people can see patterns in other places that perhaps other people can't. And that can be a great strength. Dyspraxia is to do with coordination, and again it can have a strength of resilience and determination that people have developed that enables them to keep going despite that lack of coordination, and in some ways compensates, but sometimes has other great benefits. And so people with brains that work differently, have both strengths and weaknesses, like we all do. And so in this image that Paul uses, he sees the church like a body and discusses how we need each other and we all belong to each other in a community. And we look at that, and he looks at that in terms of these strengths and weaknesses. And that gives us some insight into inclusion and how we can include people and how we are including people. So, for example, inclusion involves taking care not to expose someone's weakness. I find the environment can sometimes be overstimulating to me, in that it can exhaust me when there's crowds of people, or when there's loud noise, or when there's strong smells. And so it's wonderful in our community how we take care of the volume of music, that it's not too loud to disturb people. And also, we value people for their strengths and give opportunity for people to express these strengths and to use their gifts despite their weaknesses. We look past the weaknesses, if you like. So, for example, I find socializing a challenge, and that doesn't mean, though, that I lack a credibility in doing a reflection like this. And so someone, just because of one particular weakness, isn't then disqualified from using a particular strength that they have. Also, one way we can value those strengths is to create a culture where those particular strengths are valued. Honesty, for example, is something that I have because of my autism, and I've learned over the years to be more diplomatic, to really speak the truth in love and not just speak the truth directly, because it can be hurtful. But that truthfulness is still a strength. And if you have a community where people just speak indirectly to one another and don't really tell people what they need to know, but are forever hinting at it, it doesn't really include myself or people that are autistic. And so by being more honest and open with one another, we find we're including people who have that strength. If we think in long-term ways, that can be a strength, rather than just what happened this week. But we think in that determination and that persevering way, we can actually include people who naturally think in that way. I think it's also important to recognise that everyone is unique despite their diagnostic label. Just because you've met one person with that diagnostic label doesn't mean you've met them all. And so each person has their own unique gifts and abilities. But understanding some of these labels, understanding some of these diagnoses, can help us to know that those strengths might be there, and can give you a signpost for us to be aware of how someone is different. But having said all of that, I think it's important to say that we do value people for who they are, and not just what we can do. And as we've said, we need each other. we belong to one another, and in such a community we can serve one another and use our gifts, but we can also just be friends with one another and get to know one another and enjoy each other's company, and being aware of all these wonderful differences in diversity of how our brains might work.
I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I will
So if you've been with us online throughout lockdown, you'll know that a kind of regular part of our gathering together is something that we call a love feast. It's a way of representing the hospitality and connection we have with one another through food. And we remember some of the ways that Jesus connected with his followers when he was still living on the earth through food. So I brought my lunch from Subway, not a product placement, to the park to eat and to share with you. And I was contemplating how last week when we were in person, we shared communion, the Eucharist, together for the first time in a long time, because that's not something we're able to do online in this kind of a way. And the power and the beauty of doing that together after such a long time. I don't know whether you felt that if you were joining us at home. Maybe you did. Maybe that's an important part of your practice. And I was thinking about how, you know, the communion meal that we share together is about, it's a meal that Jesus shared with his followers on the night before his death, before he was crucified, and the symbolism of that meal for connecting him with his friends and his followers. And there's a reading that's really interesting about his walk to Emmaus after his death, after his resurrection, and he appears to his followers and to his friends again, but they don't recognize him in the form that he's taken. And so I'm just going to read this little bit from Luke 24. This is during their walk. As they came near the village to which they were going, he walked ahead as if he were going on, but they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it's almost evening, and the day is now nearly over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" That same hour they got up and returned to Jerusalem, and they found the 11 and their companions gathered together. They were saying, "The Lord is risen indeed, and he has appeared to Simon." Then they told what had happened on the road and how he had been made known to them in the breaking of bread. So I love that story, because it's like the meal before and then the meal after, and it feels like the moving on from the story of the Last Supper to being something that helped them to identify and recognize Jesus when they met him again. And there's some beauty of that for us, I think, too, that we're still longing for the day where we can sit around a table and eat together in a more normal, less COVID safe way, but that's probably a little way down the line. So, you know, with this memory of having shared the Lord's table together, some of us in person last week, I thought that we'd bring a little bit of that to the love feast with us today. So I'm going to pray this blessing for my food now before I eat it, and I'm going to share it with you. Let's take a moment in prayer to bless this meal. God of fresh starts, of new beginnings, of renewal and restoration, we awake to your grace. Embraced by love unconditional, with each morning you birth new possibilities. In us, around us, we are surrounded by sacred potential. There are so many ways to love. Maybe rise to today's call, to listen for the aches, to give voice to the beauty, to be a companion to justice for the morning enfleshed. So I don't know what you're eating now. Maybe you want to share that in the comments, but I've got a bit of Subway sandwich and some Diet Pepsi.
All this pain, I wonder if I'll ever find my way. I wonder if my
So thanks for joining us today. If you'd like to continue the conversation, David is going to be leading a discussion about neurodiversity on Zoom from 5:15, and we'll also have a space where people can just hang out and chat if they'd rather do that. If you're a regular part of our gathering, whether you're in, you come in person, whether you're in Birmingham, however you join us online, one of the ways that folks contribute to the life of the community is by giving a bit each month to help with our costs of getting things going. So things like, IT equipment to be able to stream, and to enable us to be generous when needs come up in the community, and other things like that. There's no pressure ever to give, but if that's something that you would like to do, we'd really appreciate it, and we're really thankful to all of those who already do give. As I said, we're continuing to meet online. Birds are very loud. We're continuing to meet online every week, and then the first Sunday of every month we'll be meeting in person as well and live streaming from there. So check out on our website for more information about the gatherings that are coming up. Next week we are going to be doing a special gathering online about Refugee Week, and we're going to be looking particularly at some stories of LGBTQ plus refugees and asylum seekers, and hearing about some of the work that's going on in those communities. And we're also having our special guest David Benjamin Blower back to play a few more songs from his album Welcome the Stranger. We're going to be hearing from Refugee Week Choir, and their choir director is going to come and speak to us. And we're going to have a special song from Nicole Grace, who works with Open Table in Reading, and will be singing for us as well. So there's lots of cool things going on. We're going to be having some folks from the Journey Asylum Seekers group, and it'd be great to learn and to kind of focus on an area of refugee inclusion that is not talked about probably as much as others. So anyway, I think that's all, and I think the only thing that remains is for me to share the blessing that we share every week. May we live fully, may we love wastefully, and may we have the courage to be all that God has created us to be. We'll see you on Zoom.